Welcome to the future. It's been here since 2010, you just never noticed it. Awkward. Behold the XA21, Ocelot's expensively experimental birthday cake to itself. The car in question was to celebrate the better part of a century for the monarch of motorsport and luxury. Ocelot helped redefine cars as art in the 1960s, graced the silver screen in the 70s, fought across the globe in the 80s, and pushed the limits of speed in the 90s. Any mention of the Jungle Cat's name evokes themes of pedigree, pretentiousness, and prestige. And to commemorate all of that, the XA21 had to be many things. It had to be thought-provoking, it had to be technologically revolutionary, it had to be fast, it had to encapsulate beauty, but above all else, it actually had to impress your dad for once. The XA21 also had some considerably large shoes to fill, as the last supercar Ocelot set the world on fire with was about 20 years prior. Now, how exactly did the lab coats at Ocelot go about making one of the most impressive hybrid hypercars before the T20 even left the sketchboard? Engineering. If I were to tell you that the XA21 had torque-vectored all-wheel drive thanks to electric motors in each of its four wheels, you wouldn't be amazed. But this was 2010. The word hybrid was still synonymous with dilettante. Okay, so what? It was ahead of its time and had an electric ICE engine a couple years before the competition? Big deal. The XA21 is like a Soviet thermonuclear bombshell. Both were designed for a payload twice as powerful, but if they were allowed to descend upon the world, it may never be the same again. All of this is to say that no, the XA21 was not designed for some piston-lifting, fuel-injecting block of cast iron. This Ocelot was powered by twin turbines. So technically they're micro gas turbines, which sounds a little bit less exciting. Nevertheless, these twin turbines allowed for a range of different fuels. You could run your $1 million hypercar on just about anything from diesel to organic. At a glance, it's obvious that the beauty of this machine could have been plucked from the ceiling paintings of a Holy Roman chapel. Make no mistake though, the curvaceous profile, prominent posterior spoiler, and aggressive vents give the XA21 license to kill. The eccentric hyper-hybrid joins the ranks of automobiles you can imagine a supervillain owning. Despite its overwhelming beauty, an indescribable chill runs through you, compelling you to stay out of its way. Whether these villains are billionaire executives with Machiavellian motives, or the movie kind with gray area morals is up to you. This is only further influenced by how rare the original XA21 is. In order to own one of these machines, living in a hollowed out volcano on an uncharted Pacific island is practically a prerequisite. And why might this be? 2 words: global recession. Despite it being 2 years after the catastrophic crisis of '08, the world was still reeling from the reverberations of the market dive. The folks at Ocelot read the writing on the walls and decided a $1 million hybrid would probably be as poorly timed as the LS transit system. The team tried twice more to keep the project's flame alight, halving the electric motor count and scrapping the turbines altogether. The original compromise was a V12, but when the finance department balked at the cost, the team settled on a V8. And coupled to these engines is arguably one of the most visceral sounding exhaust systems ever made. These "we have XA21 at home" cars never really made back the investment money, yet at the very least about 100 examples left the factory floor instead of being left to the history books. You can also put a cover on the engine and make it look like it had the turbine, so there's that. But like your mother said, looks aren't always on the outside, right? Right. Once you've parted the car's gigantic doors and peered inside, it becomes obvious that Ocelot made sure its interior intellect was on full display. The XA21 is dressed to the nines with a full infotainment center, wheel controls, paddle shifters, diamond weave leather seats, a push start, and even a place to store your oversized wallet. Just ignore the fact that the cutting edge for 2010 meant those pitiful touch displays where you have to use physical buttons to navigate. Anytime you actually do get a chance to touch the screen, each input takes but half a minute to process. The carbon fiber in here is real though. We checked. By now, the XA21 is already a decade old. It's not nearly as quick as the current heavyweight champions, not that it needs to be. The would-be hypercar mauls its corners like prey. At its straight-line speed is still enough to reorganize your organs. And in the event that you actually do need to slow down, your eardrums will be rewarded with the crackled growl of a fire-spitting V8. And even if you lack that interesting personality, the Ocelot will happily do the talking for you. The crudest exhaust note in the world may even get you out of a speeding ticket. The Ocelot XA21, the bleeding edge of art and machine, and the absent father figure behind the holy trinity of high-octane hybridity.